Welcome back, everybody. It's good to see you. Any questions, concerns, comments about the minutes from last time? They were really thin. We had a kind of a quick meeting. Right. All right. So minutes are approved unless I hear otherwise. We need to address re-election of the vice chair. Right now, that's Jim. Is anyone interested in being vice chair? All in favor of re-electing Jim, please say aye.
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
unanimous.
It's unanimous. All right, that passes. So thank you. Sarah, could we have an update on the green team?
Yes.
Sounds like big progress.
Yes. It was not easy, but we got our funding. So we got our funding. It was not easy, but on the 10th of December, the board passed the budget, including the Ready for 100. The lowest bidder, and in all if all the committee concurred, is a company in Chester County in Westchester called Practical Energy Solutions, who has done a lot of work with Philadelphia, a lot of work with Delaware County, and is quite familiar with Radnor before they come in. So we're in the process. I'm developing a database of all the stakeholders of all sorts and varieties, and we're putting together who the most strategic stakeholders are, and Diane Herron, who now happens to be the mayor of Westchester, is our contact. And we will be kicking it off with staff and the commissioners the middle of February. And then there will be 6 more meetings. The last meeting is before the Board of Commissioners, when she gives the report and the plan. And our meetings will be taped, I think, and open to the public. And we'll just go step right through this process. The goal is to be 100% renewable, not for heat and transportation, by 2035.
How would we find out when the meeting, how would the public know when the meetings are? Is it going to be listed by the Board of Commissioners, or where would it be?
I'll ask for it to be on the scroll,
Okay,
or on the church calendar, the township calendar.
okay.
So we're very pleased and very excited, and we're going to a lot of different meetings and getting a lot of background, and we're all doing a lot of reading, and it's a lot of work.
Oh, that's fabulous. Thank you.
So, I have a question. So I'm not quite sure how binding is this then? What
It
is
is
the
a
next step?
goal.
Goal. Okay.
It is not a demand, it's a goal, which the part that's hard to wrap your mind around is it needs the 30,000 residents of Radnor Township to buy in, to cut their energy bills, to have a free, if they come to a meeting, PICO energy audit and find out how to tighten up your house. Very simple. Some of it is very low-hanging fruit. One of the things, because I'm sort of a nerd, is I learned about a plug that you can buy that has an app on your smartphone. Mine happens to call Wemo because I don't want Alexa in my house. It talks to me and it makes me nervous. So instead of having a dehumidifier plugged in for the last 37 and a half years that's always on standby or on, I went to Best Buy's and I bought a plug for $24, and I plugged it into the socket and then the dehumidifier into this plug, downloaded the app, and now my dehumidifier is only on when it's raining, and my bill has gone down, my electric bill has gone down $40 a month because of one lousy plug.
That's impressive.
So it's going to be a lot of grassroots, and eventually, how are we going to convince people in the township that they really do want to get an EV? Which means, how are we going to get charging stations? So which comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Mm-hmm. And it's really a national problem, isn't it? There's,
It's a
you know, we're
national
just
and
a piece of the puzzle.
international problem,
Yeah.
and I think we're very fortunate that in southeast Pennsylvania, we have 26 municipalities that are working through the Ready for 100 program. So people around you are doing it too, and it becomes easier to do. So yesterday I went to a meeting, and the faith community of the Main Line, now it's Tredyffrin, Easttown, Radnor, Lower Marion, Upper Marion, so it's sort of cross borders. They're all working to come together to how they can begin to work on the faith-based part of climate change, but how do you translate faith-based into actuality? So it's rolling forward, and the technology is moving so quickly. And somebody was talking about solar roads. They're now solar paths, which I think with all this trail system, it looks like a macadam path, but whatever's in it, it glows at night. And they're using it in Phoenix, Arizona, because it's 114 during the day, and guess who's not walking on trails during the day? So they're switching over their activities, their recreation at night. So they've put in these paths that sort of gleam in the night so that you know where you are and how you can do what you're doing. It's going to be a gradual shift.
That's fascinating. So there's a big piece of this that's really, you know, kind of infrastructure and technology, things that, you know, ordinary citizens don't have a lot of control over, but as you start to get municipalities involved, you can imagine all kinds of areas of progress. That's really exciting.
It's,
Yeah, I had one thing on electric vehicles. I bought a Tesla in May.
Congratulations.
I know, and I'm like, isn't this great? And I'll tell you, it is frightening to go and travel anywhere because you think you have 300 miles. And I love it, I want everyone to get one, but people really need to know how difficult it is, how to get to a destination charger. When you get to a destination charger, you know how long it will take you to charge your car? 8 hours.
8 hours, wow.
If I plug it in my garage, it takes 24 hours. If you go to a Tesla supercharger, you can charge in 45 minutes. The closest Tesla supercharger to Radnor is Claymont, Delaware, or 20th Street in Philadelphia. So there are a lot of things you don't know till you get an electric
so
car.
I'm considering buying an electric hybrid from Toyota. So it has both the hybrid engine, which runs on the battery, and it has a plug-in, it's a trickle, and I don't need I can use it on 110 current at night at my house, and it overnight. But also know that Hyundai is coming out, not in the US in 2020, but in 2021. They're going to have a solar battery car. All it has to do is sit in the sun 6 hours,
Right.
and it's fully charged.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to see, talking about infrastructure, you're going to need chargers everywhere.
Well, then-
It's not going to be
Is
just at
there
the
any
mall.
universality to the chargers for cars?
No.
I'm going to guess Tesla has their own.
Tesla has their
So
own.
that's a roadblock as it is,
Yeah.
because you
So
can't
you
say,
need a
wow, I'll
giant
put up an
adapter.
EV
You
station.
do, you have to go get, you can't use a Tesla if you're any other car. The Tesla owners can use a destination charger, we have an adapter.
Yeah.
They can't use ours.
But you know that all the Wawas in New
New
Jersey
Jersey have.
are putting in charging stations.
And then you'll get there and find out they'll only let you charge to 70% capacity because they need to move the cars out because they don't have
Right.
enough.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say, like, if you're talking about 45 minutes, Wawa doesn't want you sitting there 45 minutes. Like,
Right.
it's nice that they put them there, but I think that's not a long-term
Well,
solution.
I talked
what
about chicken and egg thing, but the technology is moving ahead. There's a company that Volvo has funding, building a plant in Pennsylvania. And their goal is you'll be in a truck, a cross-country truck, and you'll get to a certain section of the highway, and your truck will wirelessly charge.
You know, but that's years from now. I mean, I
Well,
think
no,
we-
it's not that many years from now. That's the amazing. It's just rolling forward as the situation becomes more dire. It's gonna roll forward more fast. I know it's a problem, because Robin Mann has a Bolt, and she gets 280 in the summer, but she only gets 195 in the winter, because a cold battery doesn't hold as much
And
of
if
a
you go
charge.
over 65, it drops a whole lot faster, so you can never really gauge how much you have. But the point of saying it is that you just need chargers everywhere, and it's almost part of zoning, that having a charger, it's not like having a gas station, we don't have to worry about an oil tank, that it should be in everybody's parking lot. It should be broad, but it's not a gas station.
Well,
it's
you
a
know,
charging station that's convenient.
Radnor was given one.
That's the destination charger, who
It
would
was-
go there and sit
no,
for
no,
12
no,
hours?
No, 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 no,
one.
no. It was in the North Wayne parking lot. Nobody had an electric vehicle to use it. And people got unhappy because it was taking up a parking spot that nobody else could park in. So who the donor was took it out. Believe me, it's coming.
Well,
I
if they
agree
wanna
with
sell these cars, they're gonna put them in.
That's right.
There's a lot of people invested, like, I'm sure it's not there now, but the people who are gonna make money on these cars are going to be the ones figuring this out. I don't think we need to worry about, Nissan or whoever, like, they're gonna be okay, they'll figure out how to sell the cars and sell municipalities these chargers.
Well, we were just saying, if you're gonna talk about zoning, though, they wanna raise the heights for solar panels, maybe
Yeah.
that's one of the things that you also allow charging stations, don't treat them as a gas station.
It's
Maybe
on,
that's one of the
it's
things
on
we
the,
could add
it's
in.
on the agenda for the future. It won't happen tomorrow.
Speaking of zoning, we had an action item, and I can't remember where we left it
I
around.
can't find it.
Okay. Did we have some sample language from Skip, or were you tracking
Skip
that down?
said Sue Stern had it,
Okay,
and I
got
asked
it.
her, and she tried to retrieve it, but apparently there was
Okay.
a zoning ordinance created
For,
by the EAC
For
about solar panels and
panels.
the height issue.
The idea being that if there are no guidelines, then it's really hard for the zoning board to approve a solar installation. So we should be ahead
An
of that and
ordinance.
try to craft that language.
and really, the essence of it is the township has height restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
A solar panel, so here's the perfect example. Villanova, as part of their process, were mandated by the township to put 2 more parking levels on the garage that's on campus close to the train tracks, not the law school, but the other one.
Right.
They want to put solar panels on, but they built the parking garage to the 35 feet.
Mhm.
And the zoning, not zoning, the head of community development says, no, you've gone to the height. So
Right.
8 feet for solar panels should be a special, and that will be in discussion as part of working with the energy planner.
So, agreed. And so if we can help craft some of that language and get those sort of features out in front of the
Right. I just
planning board.
can't find them unless somebody
Right.
else's township
I
has the
didn't
ordinance,
know
I don't
them-
know where
Didn't
they
even know
are.
they existed.
Apparently, that was done like 6 years ago.
Okay, so.
Well, but the technology has moved so far
Fair
in
enough.
6
Yeah.
years that it's probably out of date.
Well, and maybe the model we follow is like with the plastic bags, maybe there are some other townships that have done this and we can
You know, I
borrow
will
language. I just don't
try
know
that.
who to ask. And,
It'll be through the Ready for 100 Sierra Club
Okay.
/ Ready for 100 / Southeast Pennsylvania. I'm sure there's a document in there and I can ask.
Okay.
so on the website, right? Thank you. So Sarah will follow up and Colleen will keep digging, right?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I do think that's another low-hanging fruit exercise, if we can just, get ahead of the curve. I think that's going to be positive. Let's talk about single-use plastics. I sent an article about China, so they're phasing them out. That's a big deal.
And so is Indonesia.
Indonesia.
They're sending them back.
Oh, where do they go back to? Are they
Us.
Oh, back to us, okay. So, this is another one that we wanted to run down. Do we have a firm answer from the township on what's happening to plastic recycling? We're sort of assuming it's getting incinerated.
It is.
That's, we know for sure?
I spoke with them at length, and I
Okay,
brought my
great.
notes with me, because there is nothing more confusing than the recycling laws. Act
Absolutely.
101,
Mhm.
what we have to recycle, how our charging happens, and how we're
Mhm.
supposed to get a 20% credit when we do recycling, but then they look at a composite group, and we don't know how we get structured in Delco, and they change our rates. It is absolutely being burned, although no one will admit it.
That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
And
So,
it's costing
a fortune.
this township
So,
How
400
recent was this information?
This was October.
$400,000 more than they
June.
budgeted.
But isn't that the same amount, I mean, the recycling and the landfill are the same price now, right?
No,
Recycling's more,
they're up into the $70 a ton now,
for
For-
recycling?
either or.
So it would actually be, I mean, it's expensive because it's just expensive to recycle, it's not necessarily, I mean, it's costing the township more because it's costing everybody more.
There's no market.
I know, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah.
In other words, it's not something we're doing, it's not
And,
something we can
and our
fix.
trash is now being burned.
Right.
Yeah, it's $78 a ton was
Yeah.
the last quote
Yeah.
Wow.
for the recycling, and it's $62 a ton for regular trash.
I just read something that the city of Philadelphia now, once again, is recycling their plastic, and that's why I asked when you got that information. Because apparently there's, I don't know where their outlet is, but Philadelphia is recycling plastic. I mean, it's being recycled again, it's not being.
As far as I know, there's one company that's trying to recycle plastics. It's somewhere in central Pennsylvania. No one else is recycling, as far as I know.
Philadelphia's, I read this, is
Well,
claims
I
they're
think the township should
starting
put
it up
out
again.
on their site, when they tell you when your trash is being picked up,
Mm-hmm.
a current list of what's being recycled, because she literally said, well, we're not taking wine bottles, we're taking clear clear glass, we're taking, we'll take paper, but it can't be shredded. There needs to be, and it might change monthly.
That's
Mhm.
right.
But I can't tell people what it
Yeah.
is, so it needs to be when you go and look and say, oh, it's Martin Luther King Day, they're gonna push back my trash day, my husband goes on the website.
mm-hmm,
And that if we get the township to post what is being recycled, at
Yeah.
least on a 30-day basis.
Mhm.
people
What
will
happens if
know.
you include something that's not being recycled? It gets-
The whole thing's
whole thing is
contaminated.
Oh, so you
Yeah.
can put one wrong thing in your.
Whole
Yes.
thing's contaminated and it goes to
So
Chester and
matters.
is burned.
yeah.
And plastic heat produces higher heat. And everybody seems to know or think or believe that Covanta does not have the proper screenings in Chester and the pollution that's coming up off those smokestacks.
Mhm.
And come on, it's blowing this way.
So the less of that we can put in the recycling, the better, but we need to know what those items are. And people, I certainly don't know what to put in there, so I can't imagine,
Plus
everyone
this
else.
stuff has to be really clean or
It
gets
can't be,
infected.
so that
Yeah.
means every bottle, every
Yep.
plastic container, every can has to be rinsed. And I sat next to the head of recycling for Lancaster City before Christmas. And Lancaster's not taking any paper anymore. There's no market.
That's what I mean, it really needs to be posted and come from the township.
And I think that's a great idea, so how do we make that happen?
Well, the Conservancy and the League of Women Voters have made it their thing. So you really almost have to
Okay.
work with them.
Who do you recommend? So if I wanted to make a phone call,
I'd call Roberta Winters
Okay.
from the League and Gretchen Grobel from the Radnor Conservancy.
I find it pretty unlikely that anybody's gonna check their website weekly to find out.
That's
I know, I don't
exactly
know how
right.
else to tell
Yeah.
them,
yeah,
I mean,
other than hand them a piece of paper, and, we're causing
It's-
more.
Well,
Honestly,
they
if you
went
hand
in
someone
the
a piece of
bi-
paper, it's because they're gonna be like, I'm not recycling, I'm just gonna throw that.
It went
So-
in the bill
Does-
last year, but it was,
Mm.
it's not that it was wrong, but it wasn't current.
Well, you know what the answer probably is that, the only way, if there's a discrepancy between things that are being recycled on any given day, it should be separated, and
Yes.
the person collecting it can then sort it out. That's the only, I mean, otherwise we might as well just put everything in landfill, because no one's gonna do this. Nobody's gonna be like, oh,
No.
what am I recycling, I'll sort that.
There are a lot of people,
way.
Jim, who feel that way now, that it's just
Yeah. It's just,
It's
I,
out of
a
control.
lot of times I can't even remember to check the website to see if they're collecting trash at all.
I
The
know.
idea that at the end of the week, your recycling place is filling up all week, like, on Thursday night, I'm gonna be like, oh, I gotta take all the soda bottles out. It's not happening. I mean, I'm sure a lot of it's probably all mostly going to landfill now, but,
I'll tell you what, though, if we had broad rules, my behavior's changed a lot in the last year or so. I'm pulling all of my plastic bags out. I used to chuck those in the recycling out of pure ignorance. Now those are all going back to Wegmans in their big plastic.
And
bins.
you know what they're
And they
being
make the
used
tracks.
for.
Yeah, they make the tracks out of
They're
those.
building that plant in Pottstown,
Mhm.
and they're doing whatever they do with the bags, and they're
Right.
making Trex wood out of it.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
instead
Like-
of having something that's updated constantly, why don't we just, is it possible to figure out, like, okay, what are they always taking?
Mhm.
Or what are they
Yeah,
never
is
taking?
there such a thing?
Yes, clear glass.
Clear glass.
Clear glass they're
Glass
taking.
And
Aluminum,
probably aluminum
Yes.
cans.
Yeah. And if there's stuff that there's, like plastic bags that there's never taken, just, it's out. And then, some of it's probably gonna fall by the wayside, but at least we can catch the broad strokes.
But Jim, you have to change people's behavior. I mean, I live on Garrett Avenue, okay, so we've got a lot of small properties. You live on a street with small properties. I can't tell you how many people are putting their recycling out in a plastic bag.
everyone does, because
And the township tried putting a tag, not taking it, and putting a tag on it.
and they should start it again.
But the
They got
nasty phone calls,
Mhm. I've heard that so many times, and it's just silly to me. And I mean, maybe it's time to try again, right?
Right. That's
So
what
I will take it on to call Roberta and/or Gretchen and see if they have any ideas, because, there's not gonna be a single solution for all this stuff, but maybe we can help a little bit.
Well, they had the Board of Commissioners meeting back in August. Do you
Mhm.
remember that one, Sarah? I know you spoke at it, where Bob Zinkowski stood up and he outlined all the different costs for the recycling and the trash. And then the board debated this back and forth for 15, 20 minutes.
And then
about
they
all the
send it
different
here.
options. And then nothing's happened. So
And nothing
can
happened,
we
right.
write, I mean, I don't know how we can take an action. I don't know if putting it to the Conservancy and the League of Women Voters. Like,
well,
can we
they're the
write-
ones, the only reason we put them, contact them, they're the ones who've created these sheets. They hire interns. Actually, the Conservancy hires the interns, and the League of Women Voters supervises them, because the Conservancy people go away, so Roberta doesn't go away. And these kids create it, which is just fine, and they've done it at least 2 or
But
3
they
years.
don't work on behalf of the township. I mean, don't we need to get something to the commissioners to direct the staff to say, this needs to, I mean, I feel like that's where we're working on.
Well, they handed it to the EAC.
Right. It
So-
was do's and don'ts, but it was really long and
Yeah.
very complicated.
It was
Like
We-
you
very
we need
said,
to
complicated.
Really
simplify-
complicated.
We need to simplify, I agree, and we
Yeah.
need to find a channel to get it out to people, because you're right, I don't think anyone's gonna look on the website unless they're really organized. I'm not
And
really
even if we had it
organized.
on there, we need a way to tell everybody that that's what they gotta do.
Yeah,
Can we even go to the extreme to say, with the state of the plastics at this point, the EAC recommends the township only collect aluminum and glass from here on out, and then let the commissioners debate that and get it down to the staff, and the staff will handle
that makes
getting
a lot of sense
That's
to
the
me.
a thought.
information out to
Yeah.
everybody.
And
So,
people are
like,
gonna hate not being able to recycle plastic, but the reality is,
But
plastic's
that's-
not getting recycled anyway.
Yeah.
So why
Exactly.
pretend?
Right now,
Right.
we're just pretending, and it's costing a lot of
And
money.
that's exactly what we've always done it for the township, so we should continue to do it. But we gotta face reality, guys. We gotta push the envelope a little bit.
And if the reality is that recycling costs more than landfilling, like, you wanna change people's behavior,
It's money.
charging people, money's gonna change people's behavior. It's costing everybody money indirectly.
Right.
To turn that around and have a direct cost on people is gonna change people real quick.
Well,
If they say, oh, you're putting this in the recycling, that's gonna cost us $5 more a ton, so that's a fine on you. And you're gonna get a lot of nasty calls about that too, but, I mean,
well,
that's
Lower
again, it's the
Merion
reality.
is now charging for trash.
Mhm.
You get your first trash can for free of a size that can't be any bigger than whatever, because the trash man's gotta lift it into the trash truck. And then if you routinely use more than one trash can, you pay for the second or the third or the fourth or the fifth. And I posited this to Bob and Bill White. Oh, we could never do that. But the only way you're gonna get people's attention is through dollars.
Right.
Either saving or spending or not using so it costs less.
So Emily, the thought of, kind of putting a proposal forward, I like that.
Yeah, I do
you wanna-
too.
Do you want to work on that? And I don't know how you want to do this. I could start a conversation with the Conservancy if we want to partner with them, loop you in on that, or we
Sure,
could
or
do it on our own and take a proposal to them.
And-
What's your preference?
do you think that just a letter from us stating, based on our discussions, based on our awareness, et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera, et cetera, just a simple letter to the commissioners
Yep.
is enough?
Yep.
Yeah, and
Could we
Or-
find out definitively that plastic's not getting recycled? Like, will someone from the recycling company say, no, we're not recycling
Yes,
this?
I'll call them up
They'll do
again, I
that?
will talk.
Because otherwise, that's just us saying, oh, we heard plastic's not getting recycled.
No,
We
I
need
talked
to-
directly to
The
them.
recycler, the
Yeah.
companies that are recycling are the dual stream recyclers, which Republic is not.
Is not. I know that, that was one of my notes.
Bazenska,
Lozinski.
Lozinski, he's a dual stream, and when he spoke at Old St. David's, it was excellent. He said, I heard him say, he had 4 large tractor trailer things filled with tin cans, waiting to find a market for it. And there are only 2 companies in southeast Pennsylvania that do take paper and recycle it. So there's nobody to do this is the answer. And part of it comes down to us changing our behavior.
I'll confirm and I'll send everyone
Thank
an
you.
email exactly what they're taking now.
perfect. So
And-
you'll confirm, we'll draft a letter, we'll share it with the Conservancy and with all of you and try to get that rolling.
With
Why-
that, can we, I know you have this later on the agenda, but can we also have an education night?
Yes.
Say, our recommendation to the board is this, and we would like to propose to have an education night, open to the town, like on a regular EAC meeting night, and have, not somebody from Republic, but somebody explaining, ways that you can really cut out using or improve on using cans and glass versus whatsoever, like kind of just an education night to help change, mindsets rather than just the recycling.
And there
I
are
love it.
people, there are residents and people who are doing
Mhm.
some of these things. And there's, Phoenixville is really hot these days. And there's a store there that sells stuff for lowering your footprint. And I know instead of buying a lot of stuff for Christmas, I happen to be a aging quilter. And I took a lot of my fabric and bought a pound of beeswax and a bottle of jojoba oil and some pine resin. And I've given up all plastic bags, and you coat the fabric and you make beeswax wraps.
We've
And
tried
it's-
that, it's really cool. Yeah,
It's really cool.
really cool. Yeah, I love that. So I didn't know you could make that yourself, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a really good idea. Tell us about the Westchester, we're okay with this? I think we've got an action plan. The Westchester plastic bag ordinance, you were gonna
Okay,
share that out?
so, yeah, and I was hoping that I got an email yesterday from Emma, I'm losing her last name. She's the Delco Penn Environment person,
Mhm.
with a survey on plastic bags that she asked to pass on, so I passed it on to Lisa and Luke.
Okay,
And I had hoped that someone from Penn Environment would come here tonight, but you don't see anybody, so it was pretty short. Because they're doing it, they're stimulating it regionally. So yes, each township will have a bag, but there's nothing like safety in numbers. And a number of the townships are working. The magic date, unless the state government extends it, is that all of these plastic bag bans can become law on the 21st of June, 2020, because the study period expires on June the 20th. So
That's coming up fast.
it's coming up fast. So maybe we can get someone from Penn Environment to come and talk. But this seems to be a really good, fairly simple, ban, with a lot of definitions. It does include straws, except to accommodate a disability. And the bags are prohibited. They do pay somebody a fee, I think it's 10 cents a bag, and there are fines. I sent it to you, but I'm going to give it to, it looked simpler than Narber's.
Okay.
But I'm wondering, as I'm pondering all this, to ban something in Radnor is one thing, but what do you do and how do you approach a Giant? So we only have one supermarket in Radnor Township now. It's Giant, because the Acme's in Tredyffrin. So the Acme in Radnor serves people from Tredyffrin, people from Newtown, people from Lower Merion. So how do we, that's the collective, approach Giant? Because they could conceivably say to Radnor, blow it out your ear, we're leaving, because it could hit their bottom line. Although I do some of my shopping there, I do most of my shopping at Mom's. And Giant's coming around when you say, I've got my own bags. Or I was at Micro Center today, do you want a bag? No, I don't have my bag, I'll stick them in my pocket, which I literally did.
I've
It's-
noticed a lot of stores are starting to
They're-
change. They're
So
asking
it
that.
is coming.
Yeah.
I think it would be good to have a conversation with the Wayne Business
Okay.
Association.
So we
We
have
tried
done
that.
that.
You tried it and what
What
happened?
were they
Oh,
not
yeah.
responsive?
Got no
No,
response.
no, well, so they,
They listened, but they
they
didn't.
listen.
Yeah, they were like, fine.
mhm.
Well, there's a mothers group, it's called the CAC, I don't know what that is, but Gail Morrison is part of it.
Okay.
And they're doing a whole movement to remove single bottles and styrofoam containers from the school district cafeterias.
So let me pose this question. We have a draft ordinance that's in front of the BOC now. Is there concern that it's not a viable proposal? There's implementation, but it would also have to pass. I mean, the commissioners would have to vote on it. It sounds like the one from Westchester may be simpler, but more stringent, is that right?
No, it's less
Okay,
than
it's less.
Narber.
So, I
But we
mean,
don't craft it, so I
we
mean,
don't- yeah.
you know.
So
they're
we
gonna
just
do it.
offered it.
Right.
The big issue from the Board of Commissioners was charging the fee. They weren't gonna, you had to pay 10 cents a bag. Well, who's gonna get the 10 cents? Well, the township didn't want the 10 cents.
Right, and we told them to let the.
But-
yeah, so we
but-
changed the,
Right.
But
we changed
quite
the proposal.
honestly, Sean Farhi owns a business, a
Mm.
store in Haverford Township, and he's talking about the bookkeeping that the
Mhm.
store would have to do.
Yeah, he
to
gave
drive-
me an earful about this one.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was really the big bugaboo.
And how much
Sean Farley
deterrent is 10 cents a bag? Really not much.
It's the idea.
It's,
Yes.
I think it's a
right.
problem is you're creating another line of accounting for everybody.
Yeah.
Now
It's
there's this
another
money coming in that's being
government-
accounted
Yeah,
for.
no, but I
Mandate.
mean for the individual, they're not gonna.
Mhm.
It's
mind
not,
paying
but
10
it's
cents.
it's government telling
Yeah.
you what to do.
Mm.
Was the reaction that went on that night at the Board of Commissioners.
And I can't imagine that any ordinance that we come up with isn't gonna create the same reaction, right? So maybe it's less about the details and more about engaging with businesses. I agree with you. To Colleen's point, you know, the Wayne Business Association just wants to know if we're gonna hammer them. And if we're not, then it's sort of business as usual.
If it makes you feel any better, I approached Chris Todd 4 times
Mhm.
to be part of the green team.
Not interested.
Uh,
So,
Not interested.
All
Just
right.
tell us what we're gonna have to do.
I think that was the
That's
reaction.
exactly the reaction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which
They
to
weren't gonna
me,
fight us.
it's not that's not a conflict, that's
Right.
just keep us in the loop and tell us what you're gonna do. And I think that
And I
knowing
think-
that the behavior's already starting to change, how do we nudge that along without being too aggressive about it? I don't personally care whether we pass an ordinance or not,
Right.
but I wanna see fewer plastic bags. I don't know how we get there, and
And it's not just even Mom's
Sure.
is no longer recycling the plastic bags.
Mhm.
They cannot find a market for it.
So that's the next one to go, it sounds like we're all, you know, boy, those things pile up fast, too.
They do.
You forget your shopping bag and suddenly you've got 20 bags stuffed into
I
a
use
drawer.
mine for my garbage.
I
so-
do too sometimes, yeah, but,
I usually use.
Well,
use
there's
them.
another issue that's gonna come up.
garbage
Is-
bags.
is recycling organic waste.
Mhm.
Well, I do compost, but my, you know, my trash and stuff, you know, you just don't throw it into the trash can usually, you put in the bag. Most people buy a bag. I don't buy a bag, I use the one from the Acme. So
Well-
what's the difference whether you
Right.
buy a plastic bag to throw out or you use the plastic bag you got from the store to throw
Supposed
out?
to
There's
make
no
you think
difference.
twice, right.
I use the
That's
one
all.
that I got from the store.
It is a dilemma.
Let me
I'm trying to
propose
change
this.
my behavior,
Yeah.
so I only recycle every other week.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge.
And I think that's the key, is to get people feeling that pinch of, I've got all this stuff, I can't do anything with it. Now, you know, how do I change my buying behavior so that?
And I think that's, to Emily's point of the not taking the plastics,
Mhm.
everyone's
all.
gonna be
Yeah,
really
no.
frustrated how much that piles up in their house.
Yeah, and they should be, we all should be.
Well, Lisa Borowski asked us to get back on
Yeah,
the plastic
that's
bag.
right.
So
So-
I would reintroduce the
Mhm.
draft. And again, the solicitor's gonna write the draft. Whatever we
Right.
present is
Right.
not going to be.
Well, let me give you this and just read it
That's fine,
with the,
against Narberth.
against Narberth and see if there are places where you want to merge it. I thought Westchester's definitions were excellent.
Narberth was very particular. I
Yes.
know what you mean.
And I don't, has Narberth instituted their plastic bag ban?
They did, I don't know what
It'd
happened
be
with
so,
the
right?
interesting
moratorium.
to find out how it's going.
I think it became illegal after the state law said you weren't allowed to. There was a ban against enforcing the ban.
Till the 21st
Till
of June,
June.
2020.
But even like in Avalon and Stone Harbor, they just said no more
Well,
plastic
that's-
bags, and
yeah.
Wawa just complied.
That's
So I
right.
think Giant would do the same thing. And I don't think they're gonna pick up and leave the township over. I think they're just gonna have to grin and bear it.
I'm gonna guess Giant has some sort of policy or in place right now, like where you said, we're thinking of a plastic ban, they got a canned response because it's already come up in their offices.
Right.
And I don't know
Well,
which way it
it has
is, but
I
you're
don't
not
know.
gonna catch them by surprise, they know
No,
this is coming.
no.
Yeah, and I doubt it's gonna be, we're gonna leave the township. It
New
might be,
Jersey
we're
is
not gonna,
much
like,
more
we're gonna fight you.
progressive than Pennsylvania. They just, you're right,
Well,
they
and
just
that's a
banned
big problem, because you have a company like Giant that's probably spread out through the state, and what might fly in Radnor is not gonna fly out west, and they gotta have the same policy as a company, so they say, our policy is, we're not gonna help you with this, and then, what are you gonna do?
That's right.
Good, thank you. So we'll reengage with Lisa.
Yep, and
um,
I'll look at this. If it, they were very specific about the, the volume, and
Mhm.
it was really
Yeah,
very
well,
detailed.
look at Westchester's,
Okay.
it seems to be a little softer.
Okay.
All right, good, thank you. So a couple more items on here, and I think both of these are yours, Sarah. Earth Day and the Willows Pond. Which one do you want to talk about
Well, let me
first?
tackle the Willows Pond. I thought you all know the Willis Pond. It's not necessarily fast-flowing, so they have a pump to aerate it. And the pump died. And I saw the township staff out in their little rowboat trying to fix it, and they couldn't. So they just decided the 1st of August that they would buy one in 2020. Well, call it climate change, call whatever you want. The weather has changed, and last summer was by 1/10 of a degree, it was cooler than 2016. And the level of algae, it looked like you could walk on it. And there were many ponds, a lot in New Jersey, but some in Pennsylvania, where toxic algae was growing on these ponds. So my thought was, and I talked to Paul Overbeck, but I didn't get very far, for maybe the EAC to take on monitoring this pond.
Well, the pond's growing algae because there's organic
Well,
contamination. in it.
yes, but, and they're not aerating it.
But the aerating is not the real problem. The real problem is that all the runoff from the different fertilizers and such is going in the pond and creating that problem. If they didn't have that, then
But
it wouldn't need to be.
somebody ought to know what's growing in that pond. We have animals and we have kids who fish in it, and God, I hope they don't take the fish home and cook them. I just thought it might be a project, and then I was thinking of the Radnor Boy Scouts, that it might consider a period of time where we begin to measure the oxygen level, the particulate matter, and do a little study of algae. It just might be an ongoing activity for the EAC to raise its visibility. It just was a thought.
So if anyone wants to do it, we've got some equipment
You've
from
got the
the
equipment.
stream grant. Don't recall if we can measure oxygenation levels or not, and
And-
Those are pretty pricey.
those are, okay, so probably not.
But there are grants to be gotten from the DEP for this, and in line with that is, I don't know whether any of you got this. I can't go because I've got to do something else, but Darby Valley sent it out. There's a workshop this Saturday
Yeah, I signed up for that, but.
at the Creek in
Yeah.
Haverford Township on stream watch microinvertebrates. It just seemed to me, we seem to be looking for a way to raise our visibility, and it's just, there's a need and an opportunity to, almost it could be turned over to the Boy Scouts once there was sort of a collaboration going, and let them become the monitors of that pond.
Speaking of the Willis Pond, do you have any idea what the history of that one wetland area is, the constructed wetland up on the side there?
You mean the
With
one
big
that's
UAC
growing?
sign? Yeah, it's a big mess now. Clearly, it's gone out of, it's not been maintained, but historically, the EAC, some years ago, did have some role in.
Oh, that was the grass, where the grasses are planted to
grass bed,
purify the
yeah.
pond? I have no idea whether it functions or not. I thought it was the Conservancy that did it.
No, it says EAC on there.
Oh,
There's a big sign, like, oh, the environmental committee for Radnor decided to do this, blah, blah, blah. My point is that I think it was just for that same purpose too, because, instead of having a big dead pond, they pumped it through there, it removed the nutrients, to
Right.
prevent the algae growth.
right.
And so I'm guessing there's some sort of pump system to circulate it through. I don't know what, there's a little shed up there too, I don't know what the history of that is, I don't know if there's equipment
Steve
there.
McNellis would be the person to talk to.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, because instead of just monitoring, maybe there's some way of getting that project back rolling
Right.
again.
And
The-
get
the
some
infrastructure there.
kids,
There's another one at, Fenimore Woods, same thing.
right.
Yeah, same issue, right, and we found that the pipes had collapsed or something, so there's no more circulation.
Oh, is that what happened?
I think so, the outflow is clogged up, and it hasn't been maintained for years, so it's still now catching all that, the runoff with the fertilizers and stuff. And I don't think the purification beds are really functioning anymore,
Yeah, it doesn't look like it.
you know. Interesting, so Margie, you're doing the macro workshop?
Yeah, I signed up for it tomorrow.
That's great.
No, Saturday.
those are
I have
pretty cool.
been a day ahead all week. Do you know that I
know
came to
what you
this
mean.
meeting last
Right.
night?
Oh, you're
Did you
kidding.
really?
Oh,
Oh.
dear.
I have been a day ahead all week.
No, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, Saturday.
It's
Um,
just a thought,
yeah.
because if a group doesn't take it on, nothing is going to happen.
But what, if we monitor it, what does that do if they don't have the equipment or anything to remedy it?
Well, but you have to see what the issue is, the environmental issue. And it's all changing. I thought initially you were talking about where the Spartina is growing now. Come over the bridge as if you're gonna leave and look immediate to the right. That area
Oh,
is
yeah.
growing
Mhm.
and growing and growing, and I have suggested more times than Steve Orsini needs to hear it, that we should rent a herd of goats and just let them have at it.
Yeah, I assume I don't know if they don't mow because they can't, or
They
because they don't want
can't-
to, because it's so muddy down
They
there, yeah.
can't mow because the water level is changing.
My
Yeah.
kids would be very interested in a goat-based project.
Well, you know
They
what the
would
thing to
love
do with
that.
that pond would be, if you really wanted to improve the water quality,
Is to dredge it.
Me not so
or
much. I'm not,
just
I don't,
increase the
I'm
flow.
not fond
It's
of
got a little
goats, but-
trickle in there, so the retention time inside the pond is so
Mhm,
high.
yeah.
You increase the flow, water pushes through quicker,
Right.
and.
But
all
it's
this
an
problem.
area to get some interest going.
Sure.
Just a crazy thought. I tried to get Paul to do it, but he said, how much money have you got?
Yeah,
And I
that's-
said, none.
That's,
He's with the Academy of Natural Sciences, Ruth
Mhm.
Patrick, now Drexel University. So now everything, now that it's Drexel, everything's got a dollar
Yeah.
sign attached to it.
well, if a scout wants to do a project, or if the group wants to take it on, happy to help them with equipment or anything we can.
Well, it might be worth talking to Mark Hirschler's the head of the, he's the advisor to the Eagle Scout project for Radnor 248,
284.
284. I'm dyslexic, so the right numbers. He does live up on Beech Tree, but he had a fire, so I'm not quite sure where he's living while they
Oh, my
redo their
gosh.
house.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I did not know.
He's a really nice guy.
Yeah, he is, I know him. And Earth Day, we wanted to talk about as well. When is Earth Day?
Earth Day's the 20th of April. At this interfaith, we're concerned about climate change meeting yesterday. Mainline Unitarian Church is going to have a 3-day celebration because it's the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, or the 40th anniversary of Earth Day.
Beats me. I think
About
it's been
that.
around longer than that.
They're going to have a fair, and they're going to have some stuff, and Greg Vitale is going to speak one night, which I've said I would help get the information out, but a lot of the churches are looking to do it. Radnor typically doesn't do much, so
Right.
I just wondered, and it seems to me it's sort of dumb to, you do it, and you do it, and you do it, and you do it, because then the crowd is divided by 5 and nobody comes.
Mhm. Well, Margie and Emily, I think you guys have brought up that you wanted to sort of engage with Earth Day in the future. I mean, is it worth reaching out to whoever's organizing this? Because we know the township's not gonna do anything,
Right,
right?
Tammy does a little something, but it's very small.
Yeah, I mean, I'm unclear as to what the venue is, that, like, where are they having this fair and? what
Well,
is-
Mainline Unitarian is having it at Mainline Unitarian.
Oh.
They're on Valley Forge Road, closer to Lancaster than Old St. David's Church, but they're neighbors. And so at this meeting, St. David's was going, oh, that might be good, we could work together. So we have another meeting scheduled in February, and I'll be happy to see what I can find out.
That'd be really helpful, thank you.
Because maybe there's a way to, it's an excuse to bring a lot of things like trash and recycling.
Yeah.
and
Well, we definitely need some educational events, but.
We need all
Absolutely.
sorts of education.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the alternative is to try to see if any of the schools are doing anything, but if this is kind of the biggest game in town, maybe.
I mean, can
we're-
we, how is it if we work with a church? Does that
Yeah.
look bad? I mean, that we're,
Good question. I don't know.
Wayne
They
Elementary
interface
School
with
does
it,
a
What?
the school does.
small, yeah,
yeah,
does a small one every year.
Well, Radnor's got this Earth Action Leadership Council, and they've got 100 members, 80 of whom are active. So we had during this meeting yesterday, we had taking off Greta Thunberg. It's the kids who are really moving, so what if there was an event that the kids designed with adult support,
Mm-hmm.
which was really targeted towards the kids, because it's their life in the next 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it's a possibility, but Becca Zajac and Ally Bauer are the heads of the Earth Action Leadership Conference. And I'll tell you, they are two dynamite young women.
They're high school students?
Yes, they're 11th graders.
Okay, great.
And I can give you their contact information.
Okay, thank you.
And see if there's some way to support them in even if it was something that was done at Radnor High School.
Mm-hmm, sure. And it'd be interesting to find out what their priorities are. We could pick 100 topics. It could be recycling, it could be energy, it could be something else entirely.
And
but-
I'm sure they have ideas.
Okay,
And Villanova they must be doing something.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I went to Earth Day in Villanova last year. It was pretty
Yeah.
pathetic. Because, see, the administration is not for any of this.
Mm.
It's the faculty and the kids
And the Pope, but. they're
and the Pope,
Not
but
exactly listening.
they're not listening, that's right. It's just getting people up out of their chairs.
yeah,
And it's the hardest part.
it is the hardest part. All right. Any new business, old business, public comment? It feels a little lonely up here, but we have each other. All right, well,
It is pretty lonely.
it is sometimes, but I'm sure
It sort of makes lighting this whole room a little silly.
it does, it really does. Well, thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.